Alright, so now we're going to look at multiplying integers, and now I'm not going to use the models that I did in my last video. However, I'm going to refer to them, so if you haven't watched that one yet, probably a good idea to just take a look at multiplying integers using models. Okay, so if I had these questions here and I just wanted to figure out what it equals, right? So we're not going to be drawing anything, we'll make it a little bit easier this time. So if I had positive 5 times positive 4, so if we think about how our models were working, that would mean I would add 5 groups onto our desktop, and each group would have 4 positives. And if I have 4 positives, and that happens 5 times, that would give me positive 20. Okay? And then we had something like positive 6 times negative 3. So that would mean I would add 6 groups onto that desktop, and each group has 3 negatives. And if I do 3 negatives 6 times, that means there will be 18 negatives in total. Okay? Now when we had a negative as our first integer, that meant we were taking things away from our table, so taking away from our 0 pairs. So here I would be taking away 7 groups, and inside of each of those groups I would be taking away negatives. And if you think about taking negatives away, things should start to get more positive, right? You take away the negatives in your life should get more positive. So same idea. If I take away groups of negatives, my answer is going to become positive. So I would be taking away 7 groups. Each group would have 4 negatives. In total, I would be taking away 28 negatives, which would mean I'd be left with the 28 positives if I had drawn that out as a 0 pair. And the last one, taking away positives, right? So I'm taking away 2 groups, and there are 10 positives in each group. That means I'm taking away 20 positives. Well, that would leave me with 20 negatives. Okay, now if you haven't watched that modeling video, go back and see what I'm talking about for adding things in and taking it away, because I know it sounds a little bit weird. Now we probably don't want to draw models forever, and I definitely don't want to be drawing like 20 or 28 or even more of these things. So what we're going to look at now is, I hope you started to notice a pattern that really, when we're multiplying integers, the same sign, we get a positive answer. Now this is annoying. I had put in a lovely little arrow, and I didn't notice this happen on my tablet. So this is supposed to say if we have the same sign when we're multiplying, we get a positive answer. Not a question mark, but I'm also much too lazy to re-record this video, and I think you guys know me well enough now to know that I'm definitely too lazy to re-record this. So if I have the same sign when I'm multiplying, I get a positive answer. If I have different signs when I'm multiplying, I get a negative answer. Okay? That's really the pattern. So when I multiply, positive times positive is positive. Negative times negative was also a positive, right? So if we look here, positive times positive, positive. Negative times negative, same sign, positive answer. Where I got negative answers, it's because my 2 integers had different signs. So positive times negative gave me a negative. Negative times positive, which is different, gave me a negative. So that's really the rule we're going to be following. Signs are the same, positive answer. Different signs, negative answer. And that makes it really fast to go through these. Now I don't really even need to think about those models. So here we go. First one, up top, -1 times -2. So if you are ever asked to estimate with integers, what I really want you to do is you should be figuring out the sign. Don't you dare try to type signs into your calculator. What a waste of your time. You figure out the sign. And then as the numbers get harder, let your calculator deal with the numbers. So negative times negative, that's the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive. That's a great estimation. I know I'm going to get a positive answer. That's helpful. 1 times 2, well, that's just 2. Okay? So what I'm doing when I'm multiplying, look at the signs, figure out the sign for your answer, then simply just multiply the numbers together, and I don't need to worry about the signs anymore. Okay, next one. So positive times negative, different signs, so I get a negative answer because the signs are different. Then I look at just the numbers. 2 times 3 gives me 6, so my answer is -6. Next one, -6 times +4, so negative times positive, different signs, negative answer. Looking at just the integers, just the numbers, 6 times 4, that's 24. So my answer is -24. So it's very fast and simple to multiply integers together. Same signs, positive answer. Different signs, negative answer. Okay, now what happens when we start combining more things together, right? I might be multiplying 3 integers together, okay? Now I am going to kind of use BEDMAS here. I'm going to use order of operations. And so I'm going to look at doing this first because it's just multiply, multiply. So I'm just going to go in order from left to right. So I'm just going to do this systematically. I'm going to multiply these two guys together first because they're on the left. All right, so same thing we were doing before. -1 times -2, same signs. Positive answer, 1 times 2, 2. Now I still have to afterwards multiply by that -3. Okay, so I have my +2 times -3, different signs, right? Different signs, so I get a negative answer, and 2 times 3 is 6. So I get -6 for that one, okay? Let's see, next one. Oh, it's kind of very similar actually. I'm cheating a little bit. So -1 times -2, well, that's +2. And then if I afterwards multiply by my -3 and then multiply by -4. So I'm cheating a little bit because I already know that +2 times -3, that gives me -6. Okay. And then I'm going to multiply by -4 afterwards. And when I look here, negative and negative, so same sign. Positive answer, 6 times 4 is 24. Okay. Now I'm wondering if you're noticing any other patterns here. I hope you're seeing some other patterns. I'll talk about them in just a second. Let's do even one more. Okay. Now this one is a little bit different, so I'll make sure I go slow here. -1 times -2, negative times negative is positive. 1 times 2 is 2. Good, we knew that one. Okay. Then we write everything else we haven't done. So remember, I like you to work down your page when you've got multiple things. Whatever you haven't done, make sure you put it back in the same order. Then I've got now +2 times +3, same sign. So I get a positive, and 2 times 3 is 6. And I still have not multiplied by the -4 or the -5. Okay. And now we'll go +6 times -4, different signs. So negative answer, 6 times 4, 24. And finally now, we'll multiply by that -5, and yes, that is still a 5, not a 3. Okay, and these guys have the same sign, negative times negative, so it's going to be positive, and 24 times 5 is 120. Now, if you didn't know that part, take 24 times 5 in your calculator. I'm okay with that, but you should do this part in your head. Same sign, positive answer. Okay, now I hope you noticed something here. There was a pattern going on, and again, I apologize for it not knowing my symbols that I put in. I should have double checked on my tablet beforehand. Okay, if I have an even number of negatives when I'm multiplying, I got a positive answer. When I had an odd number of negatives in my multiplication, I got a negative answer. So let's just quickly go back here and check that out. So I said an odd number of negative signs should be a negative. So if you look, 1, 2, 3. I had 3 negatives in that multiplication. 3 is an odd number, and would you look at that? My answer was negative. So 3 negative signs in the multiplication. 3 is an odd number, so my answer was negative. Let's look at the next one. I had 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives multiplying together. That gave me an even number of negatives, and that gave me a positive. Okay? Now, I'm saying this very specifically. It is the number of negative integers, not how many numbers there are. It is the number of negative integers. So when I look at this next one, 1, 2, 3, 4 negative integers. I had 4 negatives. 4 is even, and I got a positive answer. Notice I did not include this 3 because it is not negative. So yes, I had 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that. But I only had 1, 2, 3, 4 integers that had a negative sign. So I'm counting how many negative signs I have. If there is an even number of negative signs, you will get a positive answer. If there is an odd number of negative signs, you will get a negative answer. So remember, even numbers, just in case you've forgotten, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and you could keep going. So it's any number that ends in 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0 is even. Odd numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and it keeps going. So any number that ends in a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 would be odd. Okay, so a quick estimation. So here's a really, really hard question. I'm going to multiply 7 numbers together. How ridiculous. The first thing I'm going to do is get an estimation and figure out whether my answer should be positive or negative. So looking at my negative signs, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negative signs. So because I have 5 negative signs, my answer is going to be negative because 5 is odd. I've already done that estimation, and now I can just multiply the numbers. And so if you need to, you could use your calculator, but these are still pretty simple. 1 times 2 is 2. Take that answer of 2 and multiply by 3, and we get 6. Take that answer of 6, multiply by the 4, and we get 24. Take that answer of 24 times 1 is still 24, and then times 1 is still 24, and then times 1, oh, still 24. So my answer is negative 24. And I'm able to multiply those 7 integers together quite quickly. So don't mess around with the signs in your calculator. It is harder to do that than it simply is to count how many negatives you have. So remember, even number of negatives gives you a positive answer. An odd number of negatives gives you a negative answer. And there you go. That's multiplying integers.